Well, I'm gonna move them up and say, let's do it right at scheduled appearances.
Sure. Okay.
So that's item number. Well, there's a couple things, right? It's item 6 and 7, right?
5, 6, and 7, actually, if Christina's here first.
Okay. Let's, them first, and then we'll do trunk or treat.
And we can talk about that obviously during the meeting, but there's been no hard decision on trunk or treat at this point. Again, Heidi's point is we've got some time, and again, I don't think, it was not my recommendation that we make any sort of decision on that tonight. Just to discuss it a
Okay,
little
so
bit
we
more.
did a couple of these later over there.
I just spread out. Right here, I'm taking it.
Call the meeting to order. Certified compliance with the open records law.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gillis.
Here.
Councilmember Hartung.
Here.
Councilmember Hooker.
Here.
Councilmember Raisler.
Here.
Councilmember Schneider.
Here.
Councilmember Schofield.
Here.
All are present.
Next, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would somebody like to make a motion to adopt the
I'll
agenda?
make the motion to adopt the agenda. Second.
We have a motion and second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's adopted. Next, we move on to public comments. Do we have anybody else besides the people here?
We do not.
Contact us concerning any public comments. Okay? Without objection, because we do have some folks that would that have some issues, I'm going to, unless there's an objection, move up for scheduled appearances, and then actually just take the action item at the same time. The first one would be item number 6 and 7, which is discussion possible action regarding the Class B license.
So, yeah. And
And
I'm
then,
sorry.
what?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Yeah, 7 is not an issue tonight.
Not
7
an issue.
is not what, you know.
Okay, so at this point here, would you call them in? Can they hear me? Usually people can hear me.
I will let them know to come. I think. You just gotta put it back.
Okay, if you want to just mention about what exactly is being requested.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess a little background. Recall that at our May 13th meeting, that the council made a motion and a recommendation approved basically to reduce the Class B license fees for the existing 9 licensed businesses at the time. And that was reduced from, it was $400, Angie, to $50?
That is correct.
Okay. So basically, you know, in the meantime, we had the Tigans, Laura and I'm sorry, I forgot. Mike, thank you. Obviously, working on the Old Wolf building, and we've had some discussion about their new business, the Wine in Vizsla. And so they contacted us at some point, and we're asking about a liquor license. As I recall this transpired, I think they talked to Jenny, and again, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus here. And she came back and said, no, what did the council do? They changed the liquor license fees. Yes, they changed them to $50. We didn't realize that we were talking to the Tigans at the time. So as this progressed a little bit more, maybe a couple weeks ago, Tigans got back in touch with us regarding about a Class B liquor license. They were informed that it would be $400, and fair to say I spoke with Laura a couple times, and I thought she had some good points as to why they felt that they should be eligible for the $50. So I added it to the agenda, and basically they're here to make their case.
Okay, so how we're going to handle this is we'll give the opportunity to the floor for a couple of minutes to explain why you feel like you should be included in that, and then we'll have a council discussion concerning that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm Laura Tigan, for those of you who don't know who I am, and obviously my husband Mike Owen. We're just asking if you can reconsider the $50 license fee instead of the $400 fee, just because of the fact that, not that we were told necessarily that it was $50, but we think that we could have been maybe grandfathered in. If anything would have went right, we would have had our store open for Durand Fest, and everything would have been up and running. But because of COVID, which everybody says, we couldn't get loans, and it was just a stop on everything. So that's why our store has not been opened yet. We do know that Kingfisher has not even opened up yet, and we know that they got their license for $50, so we're just kind of comparing and so forth. Most recently, not sure if this is information that you necessarily need, but we are actually putting our house on the market, and we are moving upstairs to the Wolf Building, so we can put all our equity from our house into the store, so we can open as soon as possible, hoping by Christmas, so. That's kind of our points of view on that one.
Okay. Any questions for them?
Just, so would you not need the license until maybe even year end?
We're hoping November-ish, hopefully,
Okay.
to be open too, so we just want to get everything in order.
Yeah, my point in asking is, then, there's still maybe the council could consider some sort of appropriation. I mean, clearly, this is a July 1 thing that they will not be using at all till November at least, so again, there's some consideration there as well.
Exactly, that would be great.
Okay. Any questions for the applicants and what they presented? Okay, we'll have council discussion.
Is there, what's the extra involved in a new license compared to a existing? Anything?
No.
Same, no
Just
extra
paperwork.
paperwork?
It's really the same.
It's basically the same.
It's an
Yeah.
existing
It is,
license, just from a different.
I guess I personally don't see anything wrong with a proration.
Yeah, you do them.
Oh, hold it now. No, two things. Are we talking about prorating it from the full cost? Or are we saying we're going to allow them to be at the same level as an existing?
I'm saying prorate from the $400.
Which is gonna be probably pretty close to what, probably pretty close to
We're
50
gonna be
bucks.
just over
Well,
$200, I would.
Right, okay, so it could be roughly, if they're saying end of the year, I mean, basically you're talking about 50%, so $200 versus the 50 that was granted, just so
Yeah, so
everything's
it's-
clear.
Yes, sort of two issues. One way to go, I mean, basically say, no, it is what it is. We could do that. Second thing is, we could prorate it based on the number of months. And the second thing would be, we just go and give them the same rate, the same fee structure that we had for the 1 year for anybody who was an existing. I mean, those would be basically the three choices we have.
Have we ever prorated it before for anybody else?
Yes, we have in
We
the
have.
past. It's been
Okay.
quite a while, but we have.
I just thought the proration would be close, but it's not.
Not as much, no, but it's,
I guess me personally, I'd just do the $50 and call it a day.
Was there,
I mean, it's $150, gonna do something to breakfast.
no, that's not gonna.
Was there any discussion, Scott, with, I know you had talked to them about the time they were buying the thing and what they were gonna do with it?
Well, I think there's always a liquor component anyway, all along, from day one, if that's your question, Steve.
Yeah.
You know. I should say alcohol component, not to confuse the,
Yeah.
on the Class B side.
If we do remember right, when we did have, I mean, we had said at the time, I mean, it was very specific when we passed that motion, how it was gonna be handled. So obviously, this would be a change from that, but that's okay, I mean, we can do that. As we said, you know, and at the end of the day, just figuring what's fair to them and what's fair to everybody that's,
I prefer the proration. I don't think it's the same situation. They're not actively open at the time where they weren't when we made the decision.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
I mean, to make it fair, the proration would be the fairest way to do it, since when we did make that $50 deal, they didn't fall in any of those requirements. That's my opinion.
When do we do that? June?
Well, that was done in May
May.
13th meeting.
for that part of it.
But the license is July 1.
Correct.
Yeah, license. Anybody else feelings, or somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to prorate their license
Fees.
fees
Yeah,
when they open, or when they,
based on the date of opening.
based on date of opening,
Yeah.
so the longer
Okay, so
they're,
that's, we have a motion, is there a second?
I'll say.
A second, okay, on for any further discussion.
so the longer they wait to open, that fee is gonna go down.
Oh, question, yes?
Will that license still be there in January then? I was,
There's plenty of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
no
no
problem.
concern with that.
It's
Not a problem.
Okay.
It's always based on July, but yeah, we've got.
sure, December, whatever, November.
Okay, again, any more discussion or comments or concerns about this? Hearing none? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion's agreed to. Okay, we'll prorate the license for you.
Perfect, thank you.
I got one more quick question, because I don't know who to ask.
Okay?
On the front of that building, I'd like to build a fire escape. Do I need to get permits or anything?
Matt?
Yeah.
I'd direct that to the fire chief.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
And/or the building inspector.
okay.
And we
Well,
can get-
it's, yeah, it's not, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Sounds
commercial
great.
building. We'll start
Yep.
with you.
So Fred Weber,
Yeah.
or the-
Coming in.
just contact somebody, will get you the numbers here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Good night.
Thanks.
Okay, so you said the 7 items is
Seven
going to
is-
happen, what's going to happen?
No.
Okay, so we go with discussion possible action regarding the Durand Improvement Group trunk or treat. I believe we have, Christina is here.
You can come in.
And again, I'm making this change in the agenda without objection. Okay, where are we at with, I don't know if you want to talk and then, and give Christina.
Yeah, we can start. So I know that big group, Christina and Amanda, I think, have been in contact with Heidi Stewart, County Health Director, in talking through some preliminary items. I think as most of you are aware, every Friday morning, 11 o'clock, we have a Zoom meeting with Heidi and many others around the community. And this was a topic of discussion both before the meeting and as part of the meeting. So Heidi's main point at this point, and basically I went on a little bit of a limb and said, Heidi, I'm anticipating that the council's going to treat trunk or treat similarly to music in the park. That if you think you can work something out with Dig, that I think it's likely the council will say, okay, but until that happens, I said, we're probably not going to touch this. And there's still some time, obviously. So that's kind of the route that Heidi went. Heidi also did get some guidance from the Department of Human Services regarding, or Wisconsin Department of Health Services regarding Halloween. And we talked a little bit about that at our meeting. Now, again, they're flat out saying that they don't want to see large outdoor gatherings such as parties, festivals, parades, and the traditional trick-or-treating indoor. We talked about that briefly. I point blank asked Heidi during the meeting, so does this mean they can't do it? And her point was, Scott, I'm not going to say just no to anything. How about we continue talking with Dig, if we can work something move forward. Now, I think it's pretty fair to say that what's not going to happen is the same way it's happened the last 2 years, where there's large congregations of people downtown. Something's got to change there. And so again, when the mayor asked to have this on the agenda, my understanding was it was going to be kind of a general conversation, because Heidi needs some more time to work through things. So again, with Christina here tonight.
Christina, could you please explain where Dig's at with this?
Yeah, so I'm Christina Hager, for those of you who don't know, I think I know everybody, but hi. So yeah, like Scott said, there's still a lot of time. It's still very early. It feels like this year is going very, very fast, but at the same time, very, very slow. So Halloween will be here before we know it. So we're just trying to make some tentative plans. Definitely nothing set in stone. We want to do this right. We want to do it safely. You know, we would like to provide this community event. So that being said, some of the suggestions that we had come up with and that I spoke to Chief Ridgway about was suggesting, so last year we talked about, well, it would be great to have like the Masonic Lodge open, bathrooms, warming station. I would not like to pursue that this year. I don't want to offer, you know, a space for people to go inside, congregate. One of the main things that I think we're considering would be to have the vehicles, instead of parked on both sides of the streets, it would again be the 100 block, 200 and 300, like it was last year. If you remember last year, we had vehicles parked on both sides, just kind of in the parking spaces like they normally would be for regular parking. This year instead have cars front bumper to front bumper, kind of like a zipper down the middle of the street, and one-way walking traffic on either side. So you would head down this side of the street and then come back on that side. There wouldn't be zigzagging back and forth, standing around in the middle. And then a space between each car. So you would have like let's say odd even, you would have 1 space, 2 is open, 3 is taken, 4 is open, etc. And then on the other side, offset those a little bit. I was going to make an illustration, but I didn't. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? You know, kind of offset on either side and make it bumper to bumper so that you can't run in between and bounce around. Let's see, all participants, we would ask them to wear masks and gloves, and we would have the participants hand out, like if I was handing out candy, I would drop it in someone's bag instead of kids grabbing candy from bowls, to try to reduce, you know, shared surfaces, things like that. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. Chippewa Falls is moving forward with their trunk or treat. I know they're doing a drive-through event, so if we wanted to further break this down or restrict, I guess, we could consider that as well. I think we could still have the cars set up in the middle, and then the parking spaces would be open and we could have people drive one way. You know, there would be a designated route. So again, there's a lot of time. We've got some good suggestions. I think we're at about 18 that I know of signed up right now. We've set a deadline of October 9th for participants to sign up. And we've set a minimum of 20 for us to even pursue moving forward. I think we're gonna hit that, no problem. We've really bumped up with the help of Katie and Amber, and we've been gathering some more slowly but surely. Just for comparison, last year we had 41 participants, which, you know, this year is what it is. It's kind of its own special creature. So that's kind of where we're at. Those are our suggestions at this time. I did put out the Facebook event. It is, you know, I put a date on it when it was last updated, so that we can keep everybody, you know, posted on what will change, trying to make it clear that based on the current circumstances, we may have to adjust or cancel. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Chief Ridgway, your comments on some of those setups, what's your feelings about this?
Yeah, I think somebody had made the point during our Zoom meeting that, you know, if this is done properly, this might be a safer route than having kids go to all the houses in Durand and go door to door, if we can get this set up safely. Working with Christina, I think they've got a good plan for that. A couple concerns that we gotta consider is it's on a Saturday night. They want to change the times. Christina had mentioned this, but 3 to 5 would be the times for the trunk or treat. So it's going to be interesting to see if, you know, if, let's say Mondovi says no trick-or-treaters, Plum City says no trick-or-treaters, Ellsworth, Pepin, whoever around here, if they say no, we're probably going to get a lot of people in town, which is a concern of mine, but yet I think we can get it planned up to be a safe event, as long as people are wearing masks and obeying social distancing. Not one thing that they're not going to do a costume contest, or they talked about not doing a contest. That'll kind of keep some of the congregating down as well. And if we keep it flowing, and as long as our numbers stay low in Pepin County, I think it'll be a good event.
And like I said,
if our numbers start increasing in our schools and things like that, I think the council needs to jump on it right away and say no, because then you put the kids at risk for canceling school, or not canceling school, but having to go virtual, which people know my opinions on that. And I want my kids in school, so if our numbers start spiking before Halloween, I think we need to be prepared to say, sorry, we can't take the risk. We need to make sure that our kids are going to school.
Okay. So we're really not making a decision tonight.
There's no need, I mean, it's a little premature for them.
But yet I wanted to make sure everybody where we were at with this, make sure Dig knew where we were at, obviously input from the chief and Avi. Because again, I believe that if we can come up with a safe event, I believe if the health department, you know, can, and we do a number of things, it'd still be nice to have something. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of things that are canceled. You're right about those things. Things start to spike, things get through the school, there's a lot of things that could play in prior to that. But obviously, I think the effort to put into, to have an event, and you're right, the question is, if everybody's doing it safely, is it safer doing that than having people running around to houses, you know? And I think the answer would be yes, I think. And do that, so. Any questions from the council? Any opinions, or anybody want to step up and say what they're, before, especially as, concerns about their planning? So they have time to, if anybody's got any concerns?
I think they're doing everything they can do, and it's a game time decision, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
I think there need to be
plays
some good instructions to the people that'll be handing candy out, coming from Heidi or the health department as far as, what they have to be wearing and the kind of the protocol for that.
But you are correct, though, the numbers are, at my house last year, were a fourth of what they normally were.
Sorry. There were
Yeah,
about five.
No, that's not.
I was fine with it.
I'm good with it, Boston got 4 times as much.
Exactly.
Yeah, there were about 500 kids that came through last year, so I mean, and like Stan said, if there are not other area events, and we go ahead, we very well may draw in those extra people. But another thing I forgot to mention is this year is the first year we did require sign up for participants. So I do have names, phone numbers, and email addresses for everyone who's signing up to hand out candy, so we will be able to get a hold of them and relay information as necessary.
The one thing that I was thinking about, this is sitting there saying, you're right about sitting there saying if you just have a couple people handing out the candy and handing it out, also probably, I'm guessing everything needs to be pre-wrapped and so on and that type of thing. But is there a possibility if there was a table or something in between, so they would come up and there would be some distance? It would create a natural barrier. You're still, again, there's going to be some contact or something when you put it in, but it may be between, that was just something I thought. Would that create a little bit more of a barrier so someone's not coming, a kid's not running right up to, that's just an idea.
I think the key is keeping them moving,
Yeah.
because they say 15 minutes of contact, so, I mean, nobody's gonna see 15 minutes of anybody down there. Get your candy, go.
Yep.
It'll be pretty smooth, so.
Mhm.
I think it'll be fine. I think the way you explain setting it up, I think it's perfect.
Okay? Any other questions at this time? As we said, we'll obviously continue to work on this, and as I said, I think if it can be done, I would like to see it, but a lot of factors are going to come into play between now and then.
I think one thing for the next meeting when we discuss this, we get finalized, whether or not is, we talked about, I don't remember we talked about before, if the city actually sanctions the door-to-door hours and things like that.
That's the other thing
Or do we
too,
just not do that?
Because we've always announced our times, and that's a sort of a form of sanction,
Right.
and how exact that's
We
going
have
to
had
happen.
people call already asking if we're going to have hours, if we're going to allow it.
Okay? Christine, thank you. Okay, next we'll get back on the regular agenda. The consent agenda, the following matters may be acted upon by the city council utilizing a single vote. Individual items which any member wishes to address in greater detail as a separate item on the regular agenda may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any council member. All we have are the minutes from the regular council meeting from September 9th, 2020.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's approved. Next, move on to the business agenda. Mayor's report. I've got nothing. But unless somebody's got a question and stuff, but I would, every time, of course, I sit down, that was a few days in advance, I really, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Next, we'll move on, nothing was off the consent agenda. We'll move on to the administrator's report. Administrator Rasmussen.
Just a couple things here. We continue to work forward with staff, basically as part of our CARES funding to make sure that we don't leave anything on the table. We may have the opportunity, we've discovered from a gracious local township who may not be using all of their money that may be willing to transfer some because they do have that option. So we're going to pursue those items as well. We also heard from Maria Nelson, the county, who is really kind of the coordinator of all these things, that there may be some more Department of Justice money for law enforcement. I know you were on the email stand as well. So again, we'll take advantage of those situations as best we can. Just a quick update on vacant building. Vacant building stuff is, the paperwork is due this Friday. Of the 14 people, one of them has basically, well, it's become moot. So basically there's 13 out there. I've got seven forms back and a couple payments, and Basically, it's the usual suspects. I haven't got anything back from yet, so. But again, the deadline's Friday, and we'll keep moving forward on that. Otherwise, that's really all I have. As I said last meeting, and I'll probably keep saying it until November, it's kind of all budget all the time, so a lot of meetings coming up. Frankly, the Public Works meeting that we'll be talking about a little bit later was primarily a budget meeting, so a lot of those coming up. Well, another Public Works meeting to talk about operations and capital next week, and then public safety the week after that, so a lot of work to do, and I'll be spending some significant amount of time with department heads on budget-related items between obviously now and the end of October. I'm sorry, and one final thing. I was gonna ask that Angie take some time, thanks for giving me that look. Take some time, just talk about election items. There's a lot of confusion out there. People are getting letters and when the in-person voting, so I would like to devote some of my time to let Angie talk a little bit about election timing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's been, like I said, we have been getting tons of phone calls of people saying, well, I think I've already registered to do absentee, but I'm not sure because I keep getting letters in the mail. The state sent out, they took a list back in June, the beginning of June, that they have on their state voter registration site. They took a whole list of people that were not registered to do absentee and sent out letters to everyone just to let them know that they have that option. They sent the form along. So people are getting confused because if they signed up right after that, they're still getting the letters in the mail. But also the Republican Party is sending out information on absentee voting. The Democratic Party, all the parties have been sending it out. So people can get 3 or 4 mailings requesting absentee. They can always call City Hall if they just want to make sure they're on their list. We had our first, everybody that we had on our list up through the beginning, or the beginning of last week, everybody that we had, by the end of last week, we were allowed to mail out all the ballots. So they should have received them if they were on the list. Otherwise, you can call at any time. There's My Vote that you can go to on the website, and they'll be able to tell you if you registered, if you've signed up for absentee. They can give you that information too, and there's also a place to sign up on that website. So you can just request it all online. It'll come directly to me, and I can mail it out. It's a really quick system. But if anyone is confused, feel free to call down here. We can definitely tell them if they're on the list already, if they should be expecting something in the mail, if they didn't receive it, to let us know. And as of this afternoon, I've had 230 absentee voting requests, and all of them are mailed out, and I've already gotten 35 of them back. So with everything went out Friday of last week, we've already had some coming back in, which is pretty crazy. The first day you can vote in office for absentee is October 20th. They changed that rule, I think it was like the beginning of the year, where you can not do it. Before we could do it as soon as we had ballots, we could do it a lot earlier. Now they won't let us do it until about 2 weeks before the election. So October 20th, if you want to vote in person, absentee, you can send the request and just tell me that you're going to do it. We can have everything ready for when you want to come in.
And when's the deadline for the absentee request?
To be here,
You have to request it by a certain day?
the Friday before the election, you can still come in and do in person. The Thursday before is the last day that you can request it to be mailed, because you're really kind of close. If you're that close to it, you're better off coming in on that Thursday, just voting in person, absentee. And then everything, right, as of this time, and it can change, I've seen that there's legislation out there too, saying that it could possibly change, but right now, everything has to be turned in by election day. There's a...
Yes, there's still a legal case out
Yes,
there.
out there pending. So it could change, but I would just make sure you have it in before November 3rd.
So the in-person, they let you know, and is there a certain time they can come down? Is it just business hours?
We have it open. I mean, I know it's gonna get a little bit busier at that time because we've already had people requesting, but we can put them in the council chambers, we can put them in the mayor's office, we can put somebody in the community room. I mean, we can have 3 or 4 people voting at the same time. It's just a paper ballot. It's the same thing that you get when I mail the ballot to you.
So you're not on the machine here?
No, we don't have that capabilities to be able to do that.
And if you receive it in the mail, do you have to mail it back in, or can it be dropped off in person?
You can drop it off.
You
You
can.
can definitely drop it off. The only thing we can't do at this time until that October 20th date, you can't come in and get the ballot the same day until October 20th. And then you have to vote here and turn it back in if you do that.
Yep.
Any other questions?
And again, and I know you said this, but in-person absentee, they have it until when?
It starts October 20th.
And when do they have to be?
The last day is the Friday right before.
The Friday before, yeah. And we always make sure that day we're open until 5 o'clock, or we have
We have to be open till 5, Thursday, Friday, and Monday before the election.
just to, and all the way to that time, just to make sure. Just to make sure.
How are we doing on workers?
Beat me to it.
Oh, all right. I've had, a lot of my normal poll workers are not working, but I've had quite a few people volunteer from the State Department, just a few nice residents that have volunteered, so.
I'm taking the day off and will help if.
Yeah, I put Mark to work, I put Scott to work, I put Mayor to work, and Matt. So a lot of the work.
But we think we're good with workers. at this
I think we're pretty good, and I may end up getting another I have a feeling somebody else is gonna contact me that contacted me the last time, I just haven't heard from them this time, so I think.
I
we'll
would be
sitting
willing
pretty
to
good.
if you need.
Okay, good to know, I'll put you on the list, or.
You'd be in charge of lunch that day.
That's not the bad.
Good job, I know.
Yeah.
And just to be crystal clear then on the in-person voting, so basically in-person voting is from October 20th to October 30th?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I couldn't see the final date,
Yeah,
but.
so 30th, the Friday is the 30th,
Yes.
so.
Okay, thank you. As I said, you're right, people are getting confused, they're getting mail stuff, they're doing, and it's to explain, and just trying to say, they can call City Hall and you can explain their situation and how we'll do us doing it, so.
I keep this spreadsheet up every morning, that's the first thing I pull up, so if somebody calls, I can say, yep, you're on my list, you should get it, or have it on it, whatever.
Okay. Any other questions for the administrator or the clerk? Hearing none, we'll move on to discussion possible action regarding the contract for the CDBG grant administrative services between the city of Durand and the city of Corp. I believe we have Lynn.
Yep.
Lynn?
Aye. So I have the contract here for administration services between the city of Durand and Cedar Park. It is a proposal for $29,500 to administer the grant. That entails us doing all of the work, all the paperwork, environmental reviews, all the labor standards and such, and all the reporting and necessary documents through the life of the grant for the city.
And as far as the, that cost, that's absorbed into the total cost of the project?
Correct, that's not any part of levy dollars or anything like that.
As part of the,
I see that's a not to exceed.
That's correct. That's, that dollar amount was put in when we put the application, so we do not have the ability to exceed that number.
Lynn, I think we have maybe some new council members that may
Yeah.
be the first time through this. Can you just kind of go into detail on how much work this actually entails for them?
Okay, so, there are a ton of rules and regulations that the state of Wisconsin has put into place that the city is required to follow for this funding. There are bidding requirements, there is a complete environmental review that needs to be done before you can get started in this project. And we take care of doing all that. Then once the project actually gets under construction, we have to look at the payroll for every single contractor and all their workers and look at all their wages, verify that they're being paid the correct wages on the jobs because you have to adhere to federal wage rates. So each of those payrolls has to be examined every week. What happens is the state comes and monitors those, and if those don't match, then they're dinging the city for not making sure that the project and the contractors are adhering to everything. Twice a year, there's semi-annual reporting that is required. It's just very labor intensive. You're going back to the contractors, making sure that they're adhering to all the rules of the program as well. There's monitoring that's done by the state, so we take care of all of that for the city, where they go through every file to make sure that everything that's supposed to be in there is in there. And those actually amount to 2 big banker boxes at the end of the completion of the grant. That's how much information needs to be kept on file for these grants for the state. So that's what we do, and then we'll do the closeout for it. And then there's disbursement requests that we'll make on behalf of the city. They're reviewed by Scott and Angie before we send them into the state, but we take care of submitting all those disbursements too, so that you get your reimbursements from the state in a timely manner.
But do you remember how often you're audited? I want to say it was last year was the audit, and I
You will
know
be
that's certainly
audited.
another piece that you handle as
Yep.
well.
So during that audit, you're gonna be audited once through the cycle. They won't close out your loan until you've done an audit. So, I mean, they won't close out the project until you've done an audit. So that's done for every project, no matter what.
I guess I fall in that category of newer people as well.
Oh.
So how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for,
Or how long has Cedar been doing it?
Cedar's been doing it for 40 years. So we're very well versed in this, and we've built relationships with the state, and they regard Cedar very highly in their grant administration services. So that's something we're very proud of. The one reviewer actually would prefer to have all of Cedar's projects, because she knows it's such a seamless process with us and that we adhere to the rules.
And I think all the ones I've been through and have been successfully executed, and they've done all the things that are in the scope of work, and it gets done correctly.
It's correctly and on time, because Lynn will pester me and say, hey, I need this, I need that, and it's nice because she knows exactly what we need and when we need it, and she can just ask and I get it done for her.
I'm very thorough.
I can vouch for that.
Okay, any other questions for Cedar Corp? Obviously, we have the proposal. And again, it's the total amount not to exceed, what, 29,000?
We'll make the motion, we approve the contract for administrative services with Cedar and the project, $29,500.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. It's on the floor for any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Councilmember Gillis.
Yes.
Councilmember Hartung.
Yes.
Councilmember Hooker.
Yes.
Councilmember Raisler.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider.
Yes.
Councilmember Schofield.
Yes.
All six in favor.
Motion's agreed to. Next, we'll go on to the police report, monthly update. Chief Ridgway?
Yeah, there's a couple things. We hosted taser instructor training last Wednesday at the Durand Fire Hall. Something we did 2 years ago. When we do that, 2 years ago, they gave us 3 empty spots. Myself and John went, and then we donated a spot to the sheriff's department. This year, because they had to shrink down class sizes, they only gave us 2 free spots. So John and I used those. We had 10 people at the class. They were really from all over. We had a guy from Menominee, Michigan. I don't even know where that's at, but so we had some people from all over in town doing taser instructor training. So we were able to do that for free. It's a $495 class, so save the city some money by hosting the event. One big project that we're working on is we're switching to incident-based reporting. Currently, we do uniform crime reporting for the FBI, and we're switching to incident-based reporting. Our computer software basically said, here's the system, but you have to enter all of the codes for the statute. So if we arrest somebody for disorderly conduct, the FBI has a code on how they want us to label it. So we have to go through all the statutes and label those codes through our system. So Brandon's helping me with that project, and so we're getting that wrapped up. We have to be using incident-based reporting in January unless they extend it. There aren't a lot of agencies that are prepared to do it, so they're probably going to end up extending that. But we're going to still try to meet the deadline and be prepared to do that. Currently, the PEPN recertification training is going on. We've got 2 part-timers that are going in person. Brandon and I are doing it via Zoom. That's 2 days worth of training there. Been busy preparing the budget so Scott and I can meet and be prepared before our October meeting. And I'm just happy to report that we now have a full-time, part-time roster, so our staffing levels are good for now, so shifts are getting filled for October and November, so things are looking good for those 2 months.
Is everybody trained, or you still got a few to
There's still some people in training, but
get in there?
yeah, but we have everybody hired that we need. Any questions?
Questions for the chief? Thank you. Fire department, anything from the fire department?
No, in fact, I met with both Chief King and Chief Miller last Friday, and neither one of them had anything for update. Did chat just a little bit. I mean, yeah, I'm good. I don't feel that they're not feeling slighted, but you know, I'm wondering at the next meeting if maybe both of them won't come in personally, just again.
That's fine.
Just kind of get reacquainted with them. Again, you'll be seeing them at the public safety meeting on the 7th, but still, I think that'll be a recommendation that they just come in at least for their portions of the next meeting.
Anybody else have any questions or anything about fire department or ambulance? Now, we'll move on to public works. Is there anything under the engineer's report?
The topo, the locates for the topo have started on the 3rd Avenue, Dryer, Laneville area, so you'll start seeing the orange and yellow spray paint. The city, we are not painting our stuff, as everything's already GPSed, so they can just extrapolate that out of our GIS system and put it into the engineering. So that actually saves us, 3 days of at least 2 to 3 guys marking curb stops and water lines on the whole project. So again, another kudos to the GIS system, which we will overview at a meeting here coming up in the future. Other than that, everything else is moving along.
So one quick question on that. As far as obviously the scope of everything we're going to do is yet to be determined, but as far as the engineer meets with all of the other utilities like gas and electric, and to talk about the project, to see if they're going to do anything at the same time?
Yeah, so they send all of them notices of what we're doing. They get through the whole process. They get plan sheets along with our stuff, so that they know if they got to move their utilities. If the power pole's got to get moved because we're widening the road, for example. If telephone pads got to get moved because we're widening the road, and that gives them, they stay in tune on that project, with them on that project, so they know that they have the opportunity to update their utilities at the same time. And most of the time, pretty much every project I've ever been involved in, the gas company will come in and throw a new gas main in on every project I've ever done. Usually, the Excel is in at minimum putting new poles in to a certain extent. So usually the only ones that don't do a whole lot is phone and fiber and cable, because they're constantly updating that stuff unless we need something moved for them. So.
Any questions about the engineering side of things? If not, Public Works Utilities, monthly report.
A couple quick updates. All of our street patches were taken care of. And then I budgeted to fix Riverview Drive down by Bauerbilt there, because that was pretty rough. The only open street we should have right now is the Shaw's building, and they signed a contract with Monarch, and that's supposed to be done, was supposed to be done by the end of this month here. So hopefully in the next week or two that'll get done. Talked about the topo already. We are removing the horseshoe pits from Memorial Park and Tarrant Park. They're in pretty rough condition, trip hazards, and I think in the 12 years I've been here, the fire department picnic's the only time I've ever seen horseshoes being played on them. So we're just taking them out. We're going to plant some grass there for the time being. River Drive behind along the river will be probably closed for a few hours tomorrow. There's some work that needs to be done affiliated with the building, so if you get any comments, questions, or concerns, that road will be closed for a few hours tomorrow. They need to park on the road to do the work, so. Other than that, if you have any questions, my next stuff's under the next item.
The well that was pulled back in, operational,
Yes.
everything's,
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting the well, yes. The well is up, operational, and online. Yesterday was its first day, back in full function. So, everything went well, about $15,800 to repair. We got safe water samples. By law, we have to pull water samples before we put it online. Got 2 safe water samples, fired everything up yesterday, and it's been humming along ever since. So.
and the Tarrant Park drainage?
Tarrant Park drainage the drainage is all in. We gotta do some grade, some surface work yet, also a load of black dirt in and bring the dozer and kind of level everything out, but it's so wet down there on the drain tile, dry everything out. So it might sit for a week or 2 yet before we get the final grade done to it. It was quite the interesting project. More water than I would have ever fathomed running through those trenches. I got some photos and stuff that I can show you, some videos and stuff that I can show you through there. But coming towards 14th Avenue, there was about you get about 2 feet of peat moss, and then you run into some really hard, call it like blue clay. So the water's had a hard time penetrating that. And then as we dug so that was the main line out, and then we dug feeders up to the base of the hill. And right when we got to the base of the hill, you just take that last scoop out, and it was literally like a water main break. I mean, water just pouring right out the side of the hill. So there's a lot of water coming out of the side of that hill. Ran into some old drain tile that was put in the past that was plugged and obviously not working. So I mean, there's been issues there, water running there for a long time. So if anyone's interested, I do have a couple videos that I've seen water services and water leaks that didn't pour as much water as that. When I had called down here to have Angie double check a few numbers for me on our water spreadsheets just to make sure I wasn't losing water in the park somewhere. So that's how much water was pouring out of the side of that hill. But yes, that project is moving along, just trying to let it dry up.
This should be a case where all that water can drain now.
Yep, so, we ran 6-inch drain tile, and then, every 15 feet put 4-inch feeders going up into the hill. We came towards there's a catch basin there, kind of where that Gaga ball pit is. We went about 175, 180 feet towards 14th Avenue, and then we went, just to the other side of the sportsman's playground equipment, and then went to the base of the hill with the feeders, so.
Any other questions on the monthly report for Public Works or Utilities? If not, we'll move on. Overview from the Public Works meeting for the Dryer and Laneville projects. Who wants to start?
All right, I suppose I can. So Public Works met tonight. Basically, all we did is we looked at Third, we looked at Dryer, we looked at Laneville. We did an overview of what's been proposed on those 3 projects. Answered any questions that the committee might have had on what is to be done. I went over the logistics of the road, and then we dove into a little bit into the finances. It was got a little late for us to get into the financial aspects, but I would anticipate that we'll talk a little bit more about it next Wednesday at Public Works, and then hopefully moving forward we can have some discussion at the council level here in October. So we just looked at all the numbers sheet by sheet, looked at the aerials and how things would lay out, and then dove into the numbers at the end there.
You had a good explanation about the reasons for both the Dryer Street project, why we need it, what Laneville, because again, 3rd Avenue sort of stands on its own as far as we receiving the grant money and so on. And again, so the basic questions that we need to answer is, are we going to do them? To what extent are we going to do them? What all of the aspects would be included. And then, of course, how to finance it. I mean, those are what it comes down to. You know, if we do Dryer Street, we do Langville, do we do sidewalk? Don't we do sidewalk? There's a number of things, those type of things need to be decided. If we go ahead and our financing part of it, do we go ahead and do any assessments back to properties that are not in the grant area? I mean, those are the decisions that we need to make. Well, I do have one question, and I think we've discussed this before. Being the fact that if we add these other two projects, as far as bidding them out, can they still be bid as one project, or you're basically bidding, so we got one general for the whole thing, or are they bid separately? You could end up with two different generals. I mean, is that?
Yeah, my perspective would be to have one general for the entire project.
Yes. And even though part of it is grant and part, we can do that.
Yeah, we can, as far as bidding it out, we can pretty much do whatever we want. So we could even go as far as to bid the entire project out and see what those numbers come back, the other two projects bid numbers come back before we even decide if we're gonna do it. We'd have a little bit money tied up into engineering, because we'd have to do more engineering than just the topo work that we did now. But you could even take it that far as to bid each project out separately and then make the decision as to whether you're gonna do them after you see the bid numbers. But you know the bid numbers, I've yet to have a project where the bid numbers are higher than the estimates. The street construction project, I should say, I've had building projects way different.
So the one other thing I think is sort of a part of it, being the fact that it's a county road also. Could you sort of explain how that works with the county, as far as what their share of it would be and how that would work? And then I'd like the members of the committee that heard the overview to maybe give a few comments about that. So first of all, explain how it works with the county, being the fact that it's a county road.
So being the fact that this is a county road, the county is basically responsible for 22 feet. The center line, 11 feet each way. That's your county road lane. So they're responsible for that 22 feet of asphalt. They're responsible for that 22 feet of road base that goes back in there. They're responsible for common excavation. If elevations get changed, anything that falls within that 22 feet that is not utility related, like water, sewer, or storm, the county's responsible for that. So, you know, they're again, asphalt, crushed rock, base, common excavation, excavating, things like that is what they're responsible for. If we dive into those numbers, then you'll see a little bit more of what their actual portion of the project is. So when I just talk total project numbers. They do have a portion of those project numbers, yes.
Matt, has the county committed to this for 2021?
Yep, I talked to the new county commissioner here just a couple weeks ago. He's aware of the project, he's reviewed all the documents, because we went through all this with the previous Commissioner Quant. He's reviewed the documents, he's aware of the project, and to his knowledge, everything is a go. And he did say that the county would just stop wherever the city decided to stop. So if you only decide to do 3rd Avenue and stop at Laneville, they'll stop there. If we go to Country Lane, they'll go to Country Lane.
So they're responsible for the middle 22 from Prospect up.
They're responsible for the middle 22 from Prospect Street all the way to Country Lane. Now keep in mind.
Not Dryer Street, no.
Not there. This gets a little technical here because Dryer Street technically is also County Road F for like 300 feet.
Yeah.
So they're basically in charge of 22 feet of everything that is County Road F. Now, the CDBG grant portion, when we file for that grant, you file that as one project. So some of the CDBG grant money pays for their portion of 22 feet. Okay, so it ain't like the CDBG is just 100% city. Okay, so a portion of them CDBG funds do get allocated to the county's 22 feet.
So, what I'd like to do is, if anybody from the committee wants to talk about the project itself, to go ahead, start with the committee chair, Hartung, and then we'll talk a little bit more of the financing part of it. Is that okay? Everything? Okay?
This is, it's all necessary evil. It's not going away. It's just, the water loop on Dryer seems to be the most pressing of the issues we have. But if you're gonna do the water loop, you might as well do everything else. As far as Laneville goes, like Matt had some pictures up of some driveways that flood. That was Laneville, right?
Correct, yes.
Just, you can't handle the water and rain, so. I said, it's not this isn't going away. It's just a matter of when. So, if we can afford it, then it's one of those things I think we do.
And just on that same thing is, when you have it explained to you where stormwater runs, it's amazing that we don't have more problems than what we have. Because there's just not a lot of good places for that to, you know, for that to go.
It all eventually ends up in the same place,
but
the conveyance is different.
But this would give us, it'd be an organized structure on how stormwater runs.
Correct.
And one of the other things is, with utilities is, up there is we have sewers, or we have sewer lines that are not good for grade and so on and so forth, so we do have some problems. Some of the houses up there do have some of those problems.
Yes.
Well, we had a pretty good discussion on what needs to be done, and we, kicked the can on a few things, but, I mean, there's a lot to absorb there. We need to make sure that the storm sewer changes that we make up there aren't gonna affect stuff we already fixed, like our drainage ditches and stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to consider up there, so. And it needs to have something done. I think, like Terry said, Dryer Street's a priority because of the water loop and stuff, but I think if we're ripping into it, like I think Herb said at the meeting, you don't want to have part of it tore up one year and then come back 2 years later for those residents and have it tore up again. So I think we need to seriously look at trying to do the whole thing, if we can figure out the finances.
I would actually recommend that, I mean, this is, like the public works, like Steve just said, this is a lot to absorb. I would actually recommend that maybe each and every one of you kind of come in on a personal basis and sit down with Scott and I and really look at this to try and understand it, because this is more than just one council meeting that you're gonna really understand. There's a lot to absorb here between the water, the sewer, the storm, not just the project and how we're gonna do the project, but the financing part of it is a lot to absorb too. So I would recommend for those of you that maybe are not on Public Works, that it won't hurt for you to come in and sit down. I'm sure Scott probably feels the same way as I do, to really, not that you don't trust the Public Works Committee by any means, but there's a lot to absorb in this project. It's not just your one standard street project with the grant. So that's just from my opinion. We make the best informed decision, and even the Public Works Committee come back in on a one-on-one basis and really dive into the numbers and the project to better understand it.
I guess to that end, I'll just add some of the same thing. Like, so basically, this combined three are about a $4 million project, using rough numbers here. There's about $2.5 million that we have to come up with, $1 million from the grant, and the county is is on the hook for almost 600.
Yes.
Yeah, so again, it's a big deal. What my plan was, after talking about this more, because we were making some adjustments on the fly even at the meeting when we were talking about some of the county discussion, goes down just a bit. My plan though was, after we meet next Wednesday with Public Works again, tweak some of, basically I've got like 7 spreadsheets here that I was gonna share with all the council members. Let you review them, especially for you 3 that aren't on the committee. If you have questions, to Matt's point, feel free to stop in or call or whatever. And clearly we'll be talking more about this during the budget process, but it's that classic, again, there's reasons we have committees, and while this is a huge project, it's clearly, we don't expect everyone to come in for every committee meeting, but I guess, echoing Matt's sentiments, that I'd have you look over these, and again, if you have questions, let me know. And so I would anticipate that those would go out with the council packet for probably the meeting on the 14th. Or if you want to see them earlier, obviously, you know where to find me.
Sure. And the one thing about it is, we're talking about $4 million total of the work. Again, $1 million grant, so much for the county. And then, the other parts of it are broken down between general obligation and then the revenues. So whether it's to pay for water, sanitary sewer, or storm sewer. So I mean, it sort of breaks down. I think it's doable as far as that we've always been pretty good with our money. We make sure we space out our projects so that we only have so much debt. We're able to be able to do this. One of the other questions is going to be the period of time, 10-year, 20-year. I mean, never go more than 20 usually on something like this, but we were looking at numbers at 10-year. So those options will be available to us. What exactly we can absorb in each one of those funds, and exactly how we can get to. But if you look at the scope of the project and how much work's going to be done, and how many, and it not just affects the people that live along that road, because some of the utility changes we're making is a benefit to, I mean, if the Dryer Street project and the utility work that we're going to do with that benefits, what, 40% of the city?
Correct.
Because we potentially could help a lot if we have future situations between the capacity, the looping ability, and everything. I mean, that this could be a beneficial project to them. So it's more than just the people who specifically live there. So I mean, this is a project that helps a lot of the city.
One thing too, I don't know if we touched on it here or if it was just at the committee meeting, the possible special assessments.
Yes.
At an option. Matt said we haven't done one since 9.
2009 was the last special assessment, so it just.
But that was also the first time we did a project that didn't have grant money in it. And every project since then, or before that, without grant money in it, had some special assessment in it.
Yeah.
To what extent, we don't know that yet, but just something to think about too.
Yeah. So in the last 9 years, because I mean, whether it was the River Street, Madison, Washington, 7th, every one of them have had grant money, and obviously that has dictated how we've done it. So this is, part of this project, at least in a little bit of a different boat. But obviously, and we can discuss that when we get to the final numbers about precedents on how we deal with these and try, but also being fair to all the property owners, of course. Okay, any more questions about that? As I said, we really dug into it in the committee meeting. That information will be coming out as we get through the budget on how we get there. Everybody will have the opportunity as we move forward. Because basically it's going to come down to, I mean, when we approve the budget, we're approving where we're going to be moving forward, because that's what we need to fit everything in and how that's all going to work. But. Okay, any other questions? As I said, a lot more to come as we get through the budget process with this. But as I said, if somebody wants to take the opportunity to come down and meet with Administrator Rasmussen and Superintendent Gillis, they can surely walk through all the details. But again, a lot of positive things if we can get this project put together. Again, any other questions? If not, let's pay the bills. As we go through here, of course, we see the list of meetings coming up. Everybody's good with those. Make sure we get them on our calendar. Any other future agenda items that are going to be coming up? Obviously, again, budget. We got that.
Yeah, nothing.
The vacant building thing is coming through. All those things are. And
Yeah,
when was the
that's
deadline?
probably the biggest, Friday, the 25th.
So they still have time?
So, yeah, anticipate we'll have a committee meeting sometime later October.
I don't want that one hit you in the hand.
Actually, books too. Books are fun. Oh, okay. So she had a phone call. Process.
We still hot, Brian?
Yes, but somebody knew she was taking. Yeah. So they were contesting. Thank you. So she had a phone call with them to discuss the case and try to get it worked out before it goes to court. Thank you. Yep.
Anybody from the council have any other future agenda items?
I thought I did, but I forgot.
Getting anywhere with the laptop or the iPad?
Slow but sure, and that's part of what, as I've talked, those are gonna qualify for under the, even though we've approved them before I got here, you still will be eligible for the CARES Act funding. So we're working with the same person that Stan had successful dealings with on his computer issue.
Under the CARES Act funding, as far as police department, law enforcement type thing, I was reading some of the information on that. Some is eligible, correct?
I haven't read the email, I was in training today, so I can.
Oh, yeah.
But
So you're talking about the past one, not this.
I'm talking about the one I got from the league.
Oh, so just recently, or?
Yeah, end of last week, wasn't
Oh,
it? Kind of
okay.
like Friday? I thought there was, maybe it came
Yeah, no,
Monday. Maybe it came Monday. It's within the last few
Yeah,
days.
okay, yeah.
And I don't think Scott gets all those, I get them.
No, I
Like,
did
I'm
not,
more-
yeah. Yeah, like I said, I got that one from Maria shared. That's
Yeah,
the first I'd
today
seen it.
Maria sent it to us.
And I think that new one's supposed to come out tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
I'll make the motion to approve the vouchers.
Second?
We have a motion second to approve the vouchers. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Schofield.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider.
Yes.
Councilmember Raisler.
Yes.
Councilmember Hooker.
Yes.
Councilmember Hartman.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
All in favor?
Motion's agreed to. They are approved. Anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
That was yesterday.